What is the probability that someday I do meet somebody like you and not in this context?
Well, if you marry, there's about a 56% chance that your marriage will end in divorce. Now, that doesn't take into consideration how many people may consult with a divorce lawyer because they're having difficulty in their marriage, but they choose subsequent to meeting me not to divorce for some particular reason, whether that's they don't want to part with half of their funds, or they've just decided it's easier to stay miserable and with a person, or they're staying together for the kids, but they wanted to know what their rights were. So if you marry, the chances of meeting someone like me are more likely than not, if we look at it that way, because it's more than 50%. So it's a high number, you know.
But if we define failure as all of the other things you've described there, where we kind of stay together but we're miserable, or we stay together for some other reason, what percentage of marriages on that basis do you think actually fail?
I mean, if we consider failure staying together miserable for the children or staying together for financial, economic reasons, and then we add that to the 56% that end in divorce, then, I mean, it would be very hard to track that, but I think it's generous to think it's another 20% probably. But I mean, think about what that adds up to. That means that you've got something that fails 70, 75% of the time. That's a negligent activity. That is more likely than not to cause significant harm in your life. So I don't say that to sound like the Grim Reaper when it comes to marriage. I actually really think marriage is a lovely thing, and I get misty-eyed at weddings like anybody, and not just for future business purposes. I think the statistic that's even more interesting to me than how many marriages end in divorce or how many people stay together miserable is that 86% of people who divorce remarry within 5 years. So think about that. Now you've done this thing. It's failed. You've gone through this difficult process of having to undo it. And now within 5 years, 86% of people remarry. I mean, so that tells you how important this is to us as humans, how drawn to this idea, this technology of marriage we are. And that to me is fascinating because I've often said, like, I'm not sure what problem is marriage designed to solve? See, the fact that it takes this long to think. If I said to you, what purpose does this technology, this mug, what does it serve? Well, that's easy, right? It's hard to drink out of your hands, and someone would have to keep coming up and pouring things in our hands. Okay, well, that's pretty straightforward. What problem does this solve? Well, that's easy, right? We want to get, the ring stains around. We get yelled at by our significant other for not using a coaster. So these are easy things. But marriage, something so ubiquitous that it's assumed. If you're dating someone for a few years and you say, guess what? We're getting married. Everyone goes, of course, phenomenal, congratulations, that's great, of course you're gonna do that. You make an honest woman of her, of course. Whereas if you say, we've been together for 3-4 years, we decided we're not gonna get married, people go, oof, what's wrong with this guy? He's got intimacy issues, he's not getting married. What's the problem that you don't wanna get married? Whereas rationally, the response should be, oh yeah, we're getting married. What? Are you kidding me? Why are you doing that? It's like someone saying, I'm going to go skydiving. It's like, wait, are you crazy? That's a dangerous thing to do. And it's not, listen, skydiving, it's not like 75%, 76% of people die who are skydiving. So the truth is, like, it makes very little sense to me that marriage is assumed to be a thing you will do when in fact we as a species are so unbelievably bad at it.
That sort of 86% that then get remarried after divorce, have they learned from their mistakes? Are they better at marriage?
This time it's different. It's this time I'm really in love. That other time when I thought I was in love, that wasn't it. This time it's different. It really, it's a blind spot. And again, where does it come from? You'd have to ask people smarter than me. It could be neuroscience. It could be the realm of a real deep social psychology. It could just be a cognitive bias. I have no idea. It could be a delusion brought on by inadequate lighting, but whatever it is, we go, oh yeah, but this one's different. This one, I did a prenup last week for a guy who went through one of the ugliest divorces I've ever seen, and that's not hyperbole. Like, I've been doing this for 25 years, just to say. So for me to say the ugliest divorce I've ever seen that's amazing. That's a really big deal. That's like a Michelin chef saying this was the best meal I've ever had. So this guy had a horrific divorce that lasted 4 or 5 years. He's remarrying a woman 30 years younger than him who he met 4 months ago. And when I said to him, as artfully and tactfully as I could, you've only known this person for a short time. And, have you thought about maybe just, being a little cautious in terms of you've seen how difficult a divorce can be? Do you think maybe it might be? He goes, oh no, I've never felt anything like this. I've never been this in love. I've never been so connected with someone. We just get each other. And, it would be very indelicate and rude for me to say, like, snap out of it, man. You got to get your, really, bring your logical brain to this equation. Do not bring the part of you that's just filled with romance and has Christmas in your eyes. Like, really, you got to look at this honestly.
Do you see a lot of gold diggers? Do you see a lot of gold digger sort of patterns? I.e., you see someone that's incredibly wealthy, you see someone that's, 40 years younger than them.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. I mean, I'm hesitant to say gold diggers because I think that has a pejorative built into it. Mm-hmm. that somehow, I think that people bring different things to the table in relationships. I think love is an economy, and I'm not saying that in a way that devalues love. I think that love is a verb. I think that love is an emotion, and I think that love is an economy. There is a giving and taking of value. And that can be incredibly symbiotic. That can be incredibly healthy and wonderful. That I am way too serious and the person who I'm with is going to bring lightness and levity to the relationship. And I'm going to help them be a little more serious. And they're going to help me lighten up, And I'm hard charging and hard working and everything's 10 moves ahead. And my partner's going to help me calm down and help me, not be so hard charging and be a little softer, be a little kinder and rest my head and give me a sort of warm place to do that. That's beautiful. We're each bringing something different. So if I'm a powerful, hardworking, financially successful, financially secure man, and I meet a young, beautiful woman who has energy and excitement and who has tremendous gifts, but doesn't have the resources to be able to do much with that, she's a talented artist, but, she's busy working, a thankless, awful job, slinging cappuccinos, and she's not able to, in this prime of her life, focus on this thing she's so talented at. And I can say to her, hey, listen, why don't you focus on that? And I have resources, an abundance of them, and I'm happy to share them with you and feel like I'm part of your success. And you, in turn, are part of my success because you give me this wonderful respite from the chaos of my work. And I don't think that that's a dishonest economy. I don't think that, so to say a gold digger sort of implies oh, she's in it for the money. And it's okay, well, I'm in it for the beauty. So does that mean I'm a horrible, shallow person, or is beauty beautiful? Is beauty something you want to be around? And if we're honest about the interaction, how is that predatory? How is that unfair to either of us? If we're honest about it, what's harder for me to deal with is when I have a client who is, 150 pounds overweight, 5'7", and there is just nothing about him that aesthetically or even personality-wise, a woman would go, oh, that's my guy. But he's a billionaire, and he's got a young, gorgeous woman who's allegedly madly in love with him. And he really believes that it's his personality and has nothing to do with the fact that he's a billionaire or that is a very small consideration. That feels to me like the worst kind of delusion, whereas you could very honestly say yeah, we each bring different things to the table. We each bring different things to each other's lives. And then, so it is a quote unquote gold digger, but it's also a man who wants to buy the company of someone who might not otherwise be interested in him if he wasn't so successful. So I think there's a give and a take in that relationship.
I think that's very fair. Have you seen examples of the latter example where you described that billionaire where there's not many redeeming qualities, where they're heading towards marriage, they don't yet have a prenup. You're maybe advising them that they should get a prenup, and they're not interested because they're so deluded by the belief that the person is interested in their wonderful personality or...
Yeah, so the prenup conversation is a really interesting one because I do a lot of prenups.
Let's just define what a prenup is.
Sure, a prenuptial agreement is a contract between two people that defines the rule set essentially for their marriage. So marriage, when we talk about marriage, people tend to just sort of use the word marriage, and they're actually talking about a number of different things. Like in some contexts, marriage is a spiritual commitment, right? It's a religious commitment. It's tied to, in Catholicism, it's a sacrament. In Judaism, it's a covenant with God. In Islam, it has its own status. So marriage exists as a religious concept. Socially, we have a definition of marriage, right? Like I am married to this person. We have married our destinies to each other. We have agreed that we are each other's person. And then marriage has a specific legal definition. And my job as a divorce lawyer is to take that piece apart for someone or to create protections for people who are contemplating entering into that legal status. So like you've been to weddings, right? I'm sure you've never at the end of the wedding said, great guys, I had a wonderful time. The cake was delicious. I need to see the paperwork. Can I see the license now? I just want to make sure everything was done properly and that there were witnesses. You've never said that. You've never said to your parents, can I see your marriage license? I'd like to make sure everything's in order here. That's not how it works. We don't do that. So you could go have a wedding and tell people that you're married and never actually legally marry. You could just tell people that you're married. You don't check people's paperwork. Like you can just wear a ring if you want to. And similarly, if you don't wear a ring, it doesn't mean you're not legally married. Like you could be legally married and still take your ring off and you're still legally married. If it was just as easy as taking the ring off, I'd be out of a job. So marriage is a legal status. That's one of the meanings of marriage. And a prenuptial agreement, the way I would describe it, is two people deciding that they, having picked each other out of 8 billion people to choose from in the world, are in a better position to make the rules that will govern the economics of their relationship than the legislature would be, than politicians would be. And anyone who's ever been to the Department of Motor Vehicles or who's ever been to, any government agency, very rarely would you interact with a government agency and go, we should definitely put these people in charge of our family life. Like they're gonna do a great job. They're really crushing it, Like that's not something people, yet most people who are married have almost no idea what legal rights and obligations were conferred on them by getting married. They just have no idea. It's the most legally significant thing they're going to do in their life other than die. And they have no idea what their rights and obligations are. And those rights and obligations can change. So like, politics and the legislature and the way that rules that govern the spousal support rights, child support rights, the division of property, those are subject to change by government change. So, for example, in the United States, alimony, spousal support, maintenance, whatever we want to call it, which is a payment a person makes to their spouse when there's been an economic disparity in the marriage and now they're getting divorced. That used to be tax deductible. It used to have no formula. It was at the discretion of a judge. Then in 2016, Trump came into office and he said, yeah, I'm not letting it be tax deductible anymore. So completely changed. Now, you're already married at this point. And now the rules about what governs your marriage have changed. So there aren't a lot of contracts in the world that people could enter into that the terms could wildly change due to circumstances beyond your control, and you're still in that same contract. So prenuptial agreements are designed for two people who at that moment have an abundance of affection for each other. If they didn't, then there's no reason that they should be getting married, that they make up a rule set that's going to govern their relationship.
And that typically, as we see it in movies and such, and we hear about it in culture, is really deciding who gets what when they break up, right?
Correct. Now, it's hard to say in advance who gets what when we break up sometime in the future, because we don't know what we're going to have in 10 years, in 20 years. So what do? You create structures. Like you create, I refer to the simplest prenup as a yours, mine, and ours, which is if it's in my name, whether it's an asset or a liability, it's mine, free from any claim by you, free from any obligation to you. If it's in your name, it's yours, free from any claim by me, any obligation to me. Ours, if it's in our joint names, then we're equally responsible for it if it's an obligation, or we equally are entitled to half the value of it if it's an asset. That, to me, just creating those 3 buckets. Now, here's the problem. You create those 3 buckets, you both sign off on it, and you get married. You can't just set it and forget it now. You actually have to have conversations with this person that you're married to, which theoretically you should be able to do, right? Like if you've decided this is going to be my primary relationship, this is the person I'm going to tie my destiny to, you should be able to talk about, hey, I just got this big bonus at work. I'm going to put this much in my sole account, and I'm going to put this much in the joint account. And then you should be able to say, if you're the other person, well, why are you putting so much of it in your personal account? Like, are things weird with us or something? Or is there, have some conversation, again, about why are we marrying? It's that economy concept, which is, look, what do I owe you if I marry you? I'd like to know that in advance. Because people say to me all the time, well, I married this person, and when we got married, he had nothing. He had nothing, and he built his business while he was married to me. And I was very, there for him while he was building it. So therefore, I believe I'm entitled to half the value of that business. Now, that's a logical argument. I don't know that I agree with it, but it's logical. But keep going with that logic, right? So if that was true, and I built this business, and my wife, who was married to me while I was building that business, she helped make that. Okay, well, her mother and father helped make who she is. So I owe them something, right? Because if they hadn't done what they did, I wouldn't have her. And if I didn't have her, I wouldn't have my business. So how much do I owe them? And now that I think about it, her grandmother definitely influenced who her mother was, which influenced who she was, which influenced what she did for me. So just, can you let me know in advance, how far down the chain do I owe people, and how much do I owe them? They can't all get half. So did they get half of the half of the half? Or do I, and if this is the logic that we're going to follow, then I would like to know in advance what that is, because there are no other transactions where if you went in to purchase a car and you said, how much is this car? And they said, money. And you said, well, how much? It's a good amount. Okay, again, we just keep talking in abstractions. I'd like to know, what does this add up to? How much is it? And even if you can't make it a dollar number, it's X percent of last year's earnings, or give me a formula, something to tie it to, and at least have that conversation, because then you can decide, am I going to sign up for this thing or not?
You must meet a lot of people who are in a relationship where one of the people doesn't want to have a prenup.
Yes.
Because when I think about having a prenup, I'm with a woman at the moment. We've been together for 5 years. Frankly, if I said to her, I want to get a prenup, she would be all for it. That's the type of person she is. She would be all for it. Then. Doesn't care. She'd be all for
Excellent.
it.
Excellent. You've done well.
But I can imagine in other relationships, I'd be nervous to even say the words, because immediately you're thinking about how you're getting out before you get in.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot to that. There's a lot to unpack there. So the first thing I would say is, all marriages end. They end in death or they end in divorce, but they all end, right? And so if you said, I'm going to get life insurance, it would be foolish for someone who's with you to say, wait, are you planning on dying soon? No, but in the event that I do, I'd like to make sure that things are taken care of in a certain way. And in the event that I do, there's going to be enough things to be upset and sad about for the people around me. So I'd like them to have one less thing, and I also know that there's a possibility. I hope I won't, but there's a possibility that I'm going to die in an hour. So I'd really hope it doesn't happen, but I can't say it's definitely not going to happen. So divorce, when we look at statistics like that, it's okay to say, hey, look, what? I hope this never happens. But if it did, what do we owe each other? What would you need? It's not just a conversation about, what do I want to keep? What am I entitled to keep? It's also, well, what would you need?
Have you seen it break down a marriage? because someone mentioned a prenup? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen marriages that were scheduled to happen not happen because the prenup discussion happened. But more often than not, I've seen the threat of not marrying someone because they want you to sign a prenup cause a person to fold in their request for a prenup, which to me is a really bad start for a marriage. So I've had a lot of clients who come in, say, look, I want to have a prenup. I have a lot of confidence in this marriage. I really love this person, but I would like to, have a prenup in place. And I draft a prenup for them and it has reasonable terms and they give it to their fiance and their fiance says, yeah, I'm not signing that. It's not happening. And instead of saying, okay, then you're choosing for us to not marry, that's okay. But I love you and I'd love to marry you, but this is something that I need in order to feel comfortable with that. They just go, okay, yeah, never mind. And they walk away from it. And because they're intimidated. And I think that's an awful way to start a marriage. I think that's much worse than having a discussion about difficult things. I don't think you would think it's irresponsible. You've been with a woman for 5 years to say to her, let's say a year ago, or let's say 4 years ago, to say to her, we're going to get in a fight sometime. That's going to happen. We're going to disagree about something. It'll probably be my fault. I'll probably say something stupid. I do that sometimes. So when we get in a fight someday, which again, I hope we don't, I'll do everything I can to not ever get in an argument with you. But at some point, you're going to say something, it's going to hurt my feelings. I'm going to take it the wrong way. I'll say something, you'll take it the wrong way. Or maybe I'm just an idiot. Sometimes I'll be in a bad mood and I'll say something, or I'll have had too many drinks and I'll say something to you and upset you. When that happens, how do you like to fight? What's best? Do you need a minute? Do you need a minute to calm down? Do you need to sleep on it? Or do you need to we got to fix this right now. I can't go to bed angry. I won't be able to sleep. I won't be able to function. Do we have to address it right then and there? Because the best time to talk about how we're going to argue? When we're not arguing. The worst time to learn how to fight? In the middle of a fight. That's the worst time to learn how to fight. So I like a prenup. I think a prenup can be a very romantic thing because it's basically saying, look, I love you, you love me, we want this thing to work or else we wouldn't be signing up for it. But in the event it breaks down, you have a right to know what you're entitled to. I have a right to know what I'm entitled to. We both have an interest in making sure that we both have the things we need so that neither of us feels like we're crawling out of this relationship instead of walking out of it. If I lose you, I'm gonna have a lot more to be sad about than my stuff. But boy, let me tell you, not knowing where I'm gonna live or how I'm gonna pay my bills, that's gonna add a layer of pain and complexity to what is undoubtedly gonna be a really hard situation. So let's take that off of each other. Let's know that, because I don't ever want the person who lays their head on the pillow next to me to be there because they don't wanna get divorced. I would rather that it be that they like having me there next to them, that their life is better because I'm there, that they feel like I bring value to their life and they bring value to mine. Not, well, I don't want to go through all that.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.